Welcome to this community town hall from Tulane University, talking about COVID vaccines.
The new vaccines that we're hearing about for COVID-19 are actually based on platforms known as mRNA technology, which stands for messenger RNA. And so the messenger RNA, these are basically tiny pieces of genetic material that carry the instructions to our cells to make proteins. And so our bodies do this naturally. And so this technology has been adopted so that we can deliver a piece of the virus on the mRNA to our cells to make a protein that we can mount an immune response to.
And what we're looking at is to make sure that these vaccines are safe and effective, that political influence doesn't rush out the vaccines. And from the data that I've seen, I'm becoming increasingly confident that not only are the vaccines safe and effective, but they're going to be something that's very important for us to overcome this pandemic.
For example, the Pfizer study, they enrolled over 44,000 people. Half of them got the vaccine, half of them got the placebo. If you assume that both groups of people were exposed generally to the same degree, the chance of the people getting vaccinated, the people who got vaccinated, of them getting sick was decreased by 95%.
Although these vaccines have been developed extraordinarily fast, there's been no shortcuts taken.
We're starting to get questions in from our audience. And so the first one I'm going to give to Dr. Ferdinand. The question is, I am 70 years old, a non-Hodgkin's lymphoma survivor, and a triple bypass survivor. Will my primary care physician be the one I should speak with regarding the vaccine?
You should always speak with your primary care physician about any medical intervention. However, the vaccine is probably going to be, especially for Pfizer, because of the cold temperatures and some of the nuances and how it's given, be done at major centers. That person who is high risk, and I'm not speaking about any one individual because you can't do that on a Facebook call, but a person who is very high risk probably would get the best benefit, because if that person is infected, their chances of hospitalization or even death are increased.
At this time, whether you've had the infection or not, you should get the vaccine if you're in a high risk group. And there's probably two reasons. One, first of all, it seems to be safe for you to receive the COVID vaccine, even if you've had COVID-19 before. About 10 to 15% of the trial participants in the Pfizer study are believed to have had COVID previously, and they seem to do just fine. But the other reason is that it may be that the vaccine will further strengthen your immunity. You know, for some infections, natural infection, the actual infection is better than the vaccine. And for some infections, the vaccine's better than natural infection in terms of protecting you. And it's not quite clear with this infection which way it's going to go. But the thinking is that, we know that some people who have COVID-19 don't have as strong an antibody or immune response. And so therefore, they may benefit from getting that vaccine.
Coronaviruses like the SARS-CoV-2, they're not influenza viruses. They don't reassort and produce viruses with entirely new sets of genes. But all viruses do mutate. And so we need to be vigilant about the mutations and look for any that could impact vaccine efficiency. Now, the good news about that is that we will be able to respond. We can modify the vaccines very quickly. These new platforms can be changed, and we'll be able to respond if a mutation in the virus should arise that impacts the vaccine efficacy.
So what we do know is that these early vaccines are preventing, mild to symptomatic disease as well as severe disease. What we don't know is whether these vaccines are eliminating infection or carriage of the virus and transmission to others. And so it's going to be critically important that everyone, even if you're vaccinated, that you assume that you can still transmit the virus to other people. And so it's important that even though you're vaccinated and hopefully protected from disease, that you still protect others by wearing your mask. Because it's going to take, I think, a lot of months of study, and it's going to take everyone, as Dr. Ferdinand has mentioned, everyone doing their part in getting vaccinated to achieve herd immunity, to suppress the virus to such low levels that it's no longer being transmitted in the community.
Many of the anti-vaxxers will always say that the doctors and the scientists don't know what they're doing because they say perhaps, and Lisa used that word a lot. That is not because we somehow don't know what we're doing, but it's a sign of honesty that it's going to take time before we know how long the vaccine lasts, whether or not you can still transmit the virus. That type of honesty is perhaps something that people are not used to, but that does not mean that the science is somehow ill-informed. It will take hundreds of thousands of persons before we can make firm decisions on whether or not you still can infect someone if you've had the vaccine and then you're exposed, whether or not the vaccine will stop you from dying if you get the infection. We just don't know a lot of those things, but that's not because somehow we're ill-informed. That's the nature of science.
I hope you have a doctor you trust, a nurse you trust, a pastor you trust that maybe has spoken to a trusted doctor. You know, I think someone that has educated themselves about this will know sort of the things that you're hearing tonight, that the vaccine has been tested in literally tens of thousands of people, and that it is as safe as a vaccine can be developed to be.
I know the community feels like these vaccines have been rushed. And Dr. Delafontaine explained that no corners were cut, no safety corners were cut. But what I'd also like the community to know is that these vaccine technologies, while they appear new to the public, they've been in development for 30 years. Scientists have been advancing these platforms and tweaking them and improving them and getting them to the point where they were ready to be put into humans. They were designed for this purpose, to respond rapidly to a pandemic.
It is so important to do two things to take care of this pandemic. Number one, keep up with the social distancing, masking, and healthcare guidelines that we've all heard about so much. And number two, get vaccinated, buy a vaccine that has actually gone through the rigorous testing and been approved in the United States, of course, by the FDA.
Would everybody on the panel take the vaccine?
Absolutely.
You know, there's no hesitancy.
Thanks to everybody on the panel for being here tonight. And thanks to all the people who were here to view it. Hopefully they'll take this back and share the news with their friends and colleagues. Good night, everybody.